Through the month of August, we have noticed the increased activity. There was more police, there was more SS, more Ukrainians around town. There was a lot of that kind of activity. And on August 30th, the blow finally fell. My father that night has been away because he worked in the bakery. Occasionally, he got a night of work from the Polish people that used to work for him from before the war, and during the war they owned the bakery, so they used to give him occasionally a night and pay him in bread. So he was away working. I and my brother got up in the morning, and here is a announcement, screams, everybody out, everybody out. Everybody proceed to the soccer stadium, and I went out to find my father. So I was trying to get through, they wouldn't let me get past my block. And then I was relieved to see that my father was coming, and we kind of got together whatever little bit we had, put some extra clothing, and we proceeded along with everybody else in town. We proceeded toward the soccer stadium. That's where they directed us. The way you had to run the gamut of these murderers, these soldiers, these Ukrainians, and these Einsatzgruppen, and this harassment with the whippings and beatings and screamings, and people used to have, there were a lot of sick people and old people and infirm people that people tried to bring them over, and they wouldn't even allow that. They would shoot them right on the spot. And that was supposed to be a resettlement, but of course we knew what the resettlement was all about. We've heard rumors, and we had the news from other places. So we proceeded to the soccer stadium along with everybody else, and once we got there, the soccer stadium was conveniently located across the street from the railroad station, and in the railroad station there was already a train with boxcars standing on the siding from the day before. So of course all pieces fit together. We could see what was coming. As soon as we reached the stadium, it was bedlam. Now the people were being separated. The younger people, like my age, were sent to one side. The older people on the other side. I and my father tried to take leave of our father. They wouldn't let us. They pried us apart, they beat us with whips, and they took him away, put him with all the rest of the town, and we went to the other side where they set aside 350 young people just to perform some work. The rest of them were all on the other side, and the Gestapo was walking around and still collecting any kind of valuables people had. And it was a horrible, horrible scene. One I can describe. Anyway, after a few hours of all this, they separated the young people that were separated on the side. The three Hobart plants got 100 people each, and there were 50 people left behind in town to clean up the mess. And superiors there from that plant came in and signed for us, like for a bunch of cattle. They put us in a truck and took us back to Dunajec, to the place where we worked all along. This was the final agony of our time, with a history of Jewish presence for about 300 years, and good, decent people working hard, trying to make a living, didn't do anybody any harm, and this kind of a tragic end to a community, it one day was wiped out completely. It ceased to exist. Now, a lot of people will comment on this kind of thing and say, well, why couldn't you do something? Why couldn't you resist? Why couldn't you rebel? Well, these people are not familiar with the realities and with the human nature. First of all, any kind of resistance to this kind of thing would have to meant it was a suicide, because they didn't tolerate anything of any kind of stuff like that, and they would just execute on the spot anybody who made the wrong move. Even if you succeeded of running away, where would you run? The hostile population around you would just grab you and hand you over to the Gestapo, which they did. A few brave people did try to run away, and they succeeded in running just a little, and before they were apprehended, and not by the Germans even, but by the Poles. So there was no place to run. The other parts of Poland, there were dense woods, there were all kinds of natural habitats where one could hide if one could succeed in running away. But not here. Everything here was surrounded by the Germans. So this really wasn't an option, and yet, and one has to take in consideration the human nature. You know, the self-preservation system kicks in, and you try to survive any which way. People figure out, if I resist, I'll get shot on the spot. If I don't resist, maybe I'll live to see another day, and maybe I see live another year, and maybe even I survive the war. So all different factors came into that, but any kind of resistance was absolutely out of question in a case like that. And so the town of Novi Tag ceased to exist. That was the end. This Al-Moleh Rachamim is from my grandfathers. Naphtali Herzfeld and Samuel Lerhout. From my father Moshe Veit. From my mother Hannah Malka Veit. From my sister Frida Veit. From my brother Pesach Veit. From my uncles, my aunts, my cousins, my friends, and the whole beautiful community of Novi Tag, which consisted of decent, hard-working, God-worshipping people who were exterminated by the Nazi murderers for no other sin except that they were Jews.
המצא מנוחה נכונה תחת כנפי השכינה ממלאת קרשים וטורים כזוהר רקיע מזהירים ונשמות אחינו בני ישראל שנפלו בידי הרוצחים ונשפך דמם באושוויץ שנהרגו ושנשחטו ושנשרפו ושנטבעו ושנטבעו על קדושת השם. שאנחנו מתפללים מיד הזכרת נשמותיהם לכן מען רחמים יסתירם בסתר כנפיו לעולמים ויצרע בצרע חיים את נשמותיהם. וגן עדן תהא מנוחתם. אדוני הוא נחלתם וינוחו שלום על משכבם ונאמר אמן.
I wish I had the words to describe the next few days, but I don't. I just don't know how to describe what happened over there. Our whole community, all kinds of diverse people was exterminated in a brutal way. It was unbelievable. It was a beautiful summer day, that August 30th, 1942. And when this atrocity happened, and not a sign from that anything or anybody cared. God, where was God? Not a clap of thunder to indicate that someone up there cares. The surrounding community completely numb, not saying and not doing anything, not that they could do much. The world at large, they couldn't care less. This final solution has been going on for a long time already. So many communities have been wiped out, but the world didn't care. Individuals in every country were risking their lives to help Jews and to save Jews. Some of them gave their lives, but the world at large was completely unperturbed by this whole thing. It almost seems like they were glad to see the Jewish problem finally resolved. And so, taken to that plant where we worked for the past 1.5 years, that little barrack that was built there to house the 100 of us was going to be from now on our home. And up till now we had a home to go to, but now we didn't. It was a home, don't make no mistake about it. It was not your idea of a home. It was a miserable, cold, and depressing place where we were cold and hungry most of the times. But there was a community. You come home and you could get together with your loved ones, and you could exchange some information or some express your fears or your whatever bothered you. It was a home of sorts. Now we had nothing. People were gone forever, and we got back from there completely numb. Completely numb. How do you absorb something like this and remain sane? We just couldn't, it was just impossible to comprehend the scope of this thing. And when we finally did, it tore us apart. It tore us apart physically and emotionally, and the pain was so intense. In our hearts, in our minds, we were still with our people. We were following what's happening to them, that the scenario we knew from so many other descriptions we heard. Them being handled on that field by this brutal murderers, those SS Einsatzgruppen and the Ukrainians, and then put on those trains and those boxcars, about 100 people to a car, without food, without water, without toilet facilities, and being jostled there for a couple of days until they got to that camp in Belzec where they were destined to arrive. And once they got there, a horrible death. They had so many ways to kill people, and at that time they used a particularly vicious way of killing people. They had trucks with the exhaust turning inside into these were like enclosed vents, and the trucks were just riding around until everybody inside was dead from carbon monoxide poisoning, and then burned in a fire, and the ashes scattered over the countryside. This was completely ripping us apart. We got, so this lasted for 2-3 days, and then a relief of sorts came in knowledge that they are dead and they don't suffer anymore. But life in this camp had to go on. That was the first of a number of camps that I was going to go through, and in a way it was a bad place to be. Even though it wasn't a concentration camp, just a labor camp, but being available there 24 hours a day meant that we worked most of the time on something or another. The food was absolutely horrible, if you can call that food. A couple of cups of coffee in the morning and the evening, a slice of bread, and noontime or something that was called a soup, but it's actually boiled rutabagas with nothing in it. So the nourishment was bad, the work was hard, and it started telling on us. A lot of people started getting weak and sick, and myself, I developed a case of what they called that time in chicken blindness. It was something that, from lack of certain vitamins, you don't see after dark. I could see during the day perfectly well, but after dark I couldn't see a thing. Anyway, we were told in uncertain terms that we are there to work. The day we cannot work because of sickness or injury, that's the day we're going to be dead. And there was no question about it that they meant it, because that's the way it was. Well, a couple of things happened there too. One thing, one of our people went over the fence at night and tried to get to Novi Tag, which was about 15 kilometers away. I don't know why he went over there, something he had. And he wasn't going to escape. There was no place to escape. He was going to come back. But he was discovered very quickly, and the Polacks handed him over to the Gestapo. They executed him on the spot. And then, in order to punish the rest of us, they came and they lined us all up in one single file, and they counted. Every 10 men was put on a truck, and when they had 9 people already, they drove them to the cemetery and executed them over there. That was our punishment for having one of our people jump the fence. So that was the first of these terrors. Another thing happened to me personally there, that I had an accident. I worked on a place where we have rolling long logs, and sometimes the log wasn't perfectly straight. It would kind of back up at you. And so the log backed up and ran over my big toe. And of course this was very painful, and the winter was absolutely horrible. It was so cold out there and so much snow. So I tried to stay out working, because mindful of the fact that there was no room for sick people here. But the pain was very intense, and I thought I was going to take a chance and sneak away. So I went to the foreman, Polish foreman we had by the name of Piechocki. He was pretty sympathetic, and I told him, look, I'm in a lot of pain. He says to me, well, you want to go to the barrack, you can go, but you know the score. If they find you over there, you'll be dead on the spot. Well, I figured, take a chance. What are the chances that they're gonna come just today? Because they weren't there on the premises. They just come occasionally for inspection. So I went to the barrack, and as soon as I made myself comfortable, when 2 assessmen with machine guns walked in, and with them was the plant manager, Gruber. And the first question to me was, are you sick? Well, they're approaching me waiting for an answer, and I want to say something, and I can't. I'm so scared that my vocal cords tightened up. I couldn't utter a sound. To my greatest of my surprises, the plant superintendent, who was a Nazi, an anti-Semite, but he knew me slightly because I used to work, sometimes he used to come around where I used to work, and so he says to the man, oh no, this man works night shift. He has permission to sleep during the day. Well, I couldn't believe this. This was like a first miracle on the way of miracles, but this man who pretty much hated Jews with a passion suddenly saved my life. Afterwards, he confided to the foreman that I was going to open my mouth and say something, and he thought that he better set his piece and get me off the hook. So that was another one of those things. And we worked there during the winter and all kinds of things. Mostly the dirtiest and heaviest work there was. One day it was raining and the rain was real heavy and a few of us were working right in front of the office. And there was a plant security, a few misfits that couldn't go to the front for some reason. They employed us as plant security, and there was one particularly vicious little guy that had to throw his weight around, so he saw through the window that we took shelter on some roof in order to wait for the rain to slacken down. And he called me over and he says to me, "Why aren't you working?" So I told him, "Look, it's raining very hard. We're waiting till the rain to slow down a little." He took a stick and hit me over the face a couple of times. "You can't work because it's raining outside? Why don't you go and tell Roosevelt that you can't work because it's raining?" Says Roosevelt, "What has Roosevelt got to do with anything?" But then we found out that was the day that the America declared war on Germany. They were all very incensed about that. So that was another thing. And so the winter was going past. We were beginning to really wither down. A couple of people died already from some disease and all that. And winter passed in 1943, the spring, and one day they announced all Jews to gather in front of the administration building. So whatever we were doing, we dropped and we went over to find out what kind of a new surprise our benefactors have for us. There was a SS officer and a few of the guards, and they had a truck, and they told us to get on the truck, and we drove off, just like that, without any telling you anything. Not that we got anything to take along or something, but just like that. And it was a long journey because the truck was burning wood. It was one of those wartime hybrids, and it couldn't develop any speed over 25 miles an hour. But when we finally arrived at the destination, under the guidance of our new guardian angel, we found out he was Oberscharführer Leo Jan. We arrived in Krakow, Płaszów. It seems you have jumped from the frying pan into the fire. Now, you all heard about Krakow, Płaszów because of the movie Schindler's List, which was occurring right in that camp. But whatever you saw over there was nothing compared to the real thing. I have a few pictures to show you before we go to the next chapter. The Belzec camp where our families perished. The monument at Belzec the ash heap where the ashes of our loved ones were scattered. Płaszów as it was then, in my days, it's not the movie set, it's the real thing. We arrived in Kraków, Płaszów. On arrival, we've been greeted by some very friendly SS officer by the name of Zajewski. In his friendly manner, he told us that we have arrived in the Kraków Płaszów camp, and here we're gonna have to work very hard and behave ourselves. And if we don't, then we'll be shot, and burial is no problem because we are near the cemetery. As indeed we were, not near, but on top of it. The whole camp was built on an old Jewish cemetery in Krakow. And immediately they took us and got us into a barrack, and immediately we started working. The place kind of looked dismal to begin with because it was crowded, full of a lot of people in a small area, and work in this camp was varied. They have factories that made uniforms for the German army. They had this Emalia Works, which was, I heard, headed by Oskar Schindler. He had his own group of Jews that they used to go every day out. There are all kinds of work commanders were out of the camp during the day, and we, the people from the that came from those 3 Hobart plants, we were experts on building barracks. We were making them, so we knew them inside and out, so we were assigned to that kind of work. It called us the Barackenbau, or the builders of barracks. And some people see that to build barracks. We used to take apart barracks on one place and put them together in another place, and next day they told us to take them apart and bring them back where we started from. And this was this kind of work that was over there. It didn't take long to find out that this was one of the most murderous camps that I have ever gonna see. It was headed by Amon Get, a psychopath who was running around the camp on foot or on horseback and looking for victims. He had a rifle with him at all times, and he didn't hesitate to use it. Matter of fact, he, as I heard from the other prisoners, could not eat breakfast until he killed a couple of people. So on his balcony there in his villa, he was sitting at the breakfast table with a rifle at his side, and if he didn't like something that he saw, he would just aim the rifle and shoot the prisoner. The whole camp was in a very vulnerable position. It was kind of in a little valley surrounded by gentle hills, and on the hills there were these watchtowers with these guards, and they had machine guns and powerful searchlights. And from top of one of the hills, you could always see the whole camp just like in the palm of your hand. There's just no way to hide from them because they could see the whole camp. And he, from his balcony, could do the same. The camp's life proceeded the usual way, and immediately we found out that this was not just an ordinary camp. This was a camp run by the devil himself. Daily there were beating and shooting and persecutions and all kinds of torture, all kinds of inventive way of torturing